Recently, I've been rewatching a lot of movies from my childhood, and it's been very insightful.
You will call me Commander.
But the further back I go, the more interesting the movies get, especially as my memories of them get blurrier. Which is weird, because I've seen some of these movies over 100 times, easily. And I think almost everyone in my rough age group has their own movies like that. You know, those few VHS tapes or DVDs that your parents bought and you would just sit and watch day after day, year after year, no thoughts, head empty, just watching Tarzan. To be honest, I think Tarzan broke my brain because I would walk upstairs in my parents' house on all fours well into my teens. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, Hoodwinked. The last time I saw Hoodwinked was well over a decade ago, and yet countless sound bites from it are just stuck in my head forever. I don't know how to do taxes, but whenever I close my eyes, I just hear, Paul's bunion cream has this soothe. But like so many movies from my childhood, that's about all I remember. Just fragments, moments without context or meaning. And I love context, so I rewatched Hoodwinked, and it had a lot more to offer than I expected. And I did not watch the sequel, because no one should do that.
And Granny, what big eyes you have.
Well, we just kind of sit around here, talk about how big I'm getting.
So, if you're not already familiar with this movie, the basic premise is that it's a retelling of the Little Red Riding Hood fairy tale as a non-linear crime drama. A few genre-inspired perspectives on the original fairy tale are told to us by Red, her granny, the wolf, and the woodsman during a police interrogation to find out who's been stealing recipes around the forest. It's kinda like Rashomon, but you know, better. Did Rashomon have Japheth the yodeling goat? That's what I thought. Kurosawa's a hack. One of my favorite things about this movie is that its perspective on humor and story feels so celebratory. A lot of media like this feels kinda snarky to me now. I think Shrek was what really started that trend, with kids' movies getting more self-aware about their material. Even though Hoodwinked is a satirical take on a fairy tale, the tone is very different from something like Shrek. There are some jokes about genre tropes.
The only thing your granddaughter is guilty of is flying a swarm of hummingbirds without a license.
But the movie never feels like it's being dismissive of them. I'm glad to see a satirical movie like this embrace its source material. And repurposing it like this is a more interesting satirical perspective than just making fun of something point by point. Like I said, Hoodwinked also tackles a lot of genres. Red's story is this big adventure, the wolf is in a mystery story, Granny is involved in a sports action thriller, and the woodsman is doing this. This is real German cinema. It almost feels like they're just throwing everything at the wall, but because the movie commits to these genres so hard, it works. Hoodwinked never tries to prove itself better or smarter than the original material, it just has fun. And I think the crowning achievement of satire comes with the villain. He's this deceptively inviting creature who seems so helpful, and he just wants to be everyone's friend. But actually, he has this plan to systematically disenfranchise smaller businesses and absorb their workers and customers into a monopoly that relies on people's passion but uses that passion as fuel for control over something so ingrained in culture that people can never truly be free of that monopoly. And that's a way better parody of Disney than anything in Shrek. Based off the clips I've shown so far, you may have noticed Hoodwinked kind of looks like a war crime. The characters move very stiffly and unconvincingly, and their eyes are so empty. There's just nothing there. And these children are just... oh, they are sleep paralysis demons on a good day. But, and stick with me here, I kinda love it. I also understand it. This movie had a pretty small budget, less than $8 million, and that was all independent funding. Hoodwinked was actually one of the first computer animated films to be independently funded. Interestingly, all those big names in the cast, like Anne Hathaway, Glenn Close, and Exhibit, really? They were only added when the Weinstein Company came on board to distribute the movie. Look, to be fair, animation tech has come a long way since 2005, and I understand if this quality of animation would be an obstacle to you enjoying the movie. I just think that quality also gives it a more distinct identity. I don't know, it just feels scrappier and a little more unique. Don't get me wrong, I like animation that, looks nice, but I don't think this movie should be disqualified from conversation because of its limitations. There is something charming about the lack of polish, a real independent spirit. It may look like Food Fight, but it doesn't feel like Food Fight. Oh god, why did I bring up Food Fight? I was making so much progress in therapy. You can see the shortcomings very clearly, but the story shines through in spite of the wonky visuals, which is not easy to pull off. Something else I really appreciate is all the original songs by Todd Edwards, which have been stuck in my head for the majority of my life.
Schnitzel, the favorite treat for little girls and boys to eat.
It's a nice touch to have this in-universe music, and if this were a DreamWorks movie, they would have just thrown in some on-the-nose mid-2000s song to sell these moments. There's a lot to love about Hoodwinked, but what I love most is that it's so uniquely itself.
You see how it works, Dolph? You prioritize, you set your goals, you write a mission statement.
I don't watch a lot of kids' movies anymore because they're generally not made for me. I also don't get mad when a kids movie isn't that deep or emotionally affecting because a lot of them don't have to be. They're just vehicles to sell Minion lunchboxes, So what I really respect about movies like Hoodwinked is that they try. That seems like a simple request, but it's less common than you think. Maybe it's not the most artistically spotless film I've ever seen, but this wasn't made to make a quick buck. It was driven by passion. Passion that's very obvious despite its limitations. And look, I don't think Hoodwinked is some transcendental piece of art or anything. I mean, in many ways, it kind of is.
What can I say? I was raised by wolves.
But genuinely, it's fine. I mean, the only thing Red's character has going for her is the whole I want to be somewhere else than here Disney princess thing, and that never really goes anywhere. And what is supposed to be the emotional climax of the movie is just one character getting upset that some other character lied to them, which only kind of ties into what's actually going on with these characters. Really, it's just happening because that's what happens at the end of Act 2, I guess. But at the same time, there's so much creativity and energy in this movie that I can overlook the generic parts. I don't need every movie I see to be some revelatory masterpiece, especially kids' movies. Consistency alone can go a long way. And this is the kind of movie I wish kids got more of. Not because I grew up with it, so it's better, but because it's a gateway to bigger ideas and stories and genres within this familiar framework. Hoodwinked is very much of its time, but it still has a lot to offer. And if you've never seen it, no matter what age group you're in, I'd still say give it a shot. All I ask is that you, as a viewer, put in some effort as well, because it takes a lot to overlook the animation in places.
Can I just make a quick phone call?
So that's Hoodwinked, a piece of my childhood that I'm glad I could still have so much fun with all these years later. It's kind of ugly, but it's got a lot of heart. It's kind of dumb, but it's smart in the right places. Also, it's really funny.
3 years ago on the Stiltskin case, you were snooping around for a lead on his real name.
That was close, too. I was gonna go with Greg.
And maybe it's also about the deceptive and destructive forces of capitalism, but I doubt it. They probably just thought it would be funny to have the bunny be evil.
Not the bunny!
I'm actually 100% sure that was the only reason.
You know, people think a health board examiner doesn't lead a dangerous life, but I will tell you, my furry friend, food is dangerous.